They've been romanticized in movies, glorified in video games, and turned into cultural icons. But the real samurai weren't just sword-swinging warriors in cool armor. They were political power players, master tacticians, and sometimes ruthless enforcers. And the code they lived by? It wasn't always as noble as you think. Today, we're diving deep into the real world of Japan's legendary samurai. The rise, the battles, the betrayals, and the ultimate fall of the warrior class. Our story begins in 8th century Japan, a nation still consolidating its identity. The imperial court in Kyoto was the political heart of the country, but its power didn't stretch evenly across the islands. Far from the capital, powerful landowning families controlled vast rural estates. And with wealth came problems: bandits, rival clans, and rebellious peasants. The emperor's distant officials couldn't protect every farm and village, so the nobles took matters into their own hands. They began recruiting their own private armies, skilled fighters trained to defend their land, enforce taxes, and expand their influence. At first, these warriors were simply called samurai, meaning those who serve. They weren't yet the romanticized warriors we picture today. In these early centuries, they were mounted archers, not swordsmen. The bow was the symbol of the warrior's status, and mounted warfare was considered the ultimate expression of skill. They rode into battle wearing armor made of leather and iron scales bound together with silk, lightweight enough for mobility, but tough enough to stop arrows. The relationship between noble and warrior wasn't just military. It was deeply personal. A samurai's loyalty was to his lord above all else. And this loyalty was rewarded with land, privileges, and status. Over time, these bonds formed the backbone of a feudal system that would dominate Japan for centuries. By the 10th century, Japan's imperial court had become more ceremonial than political. Real power was moving into the hands of the warrior class. The samurai were no longer just hired swords. They were landowners themselves, with political influence and family lineages. And here's the twist. The samurai didn't emerge in a single, sudden moment. They evolved gradually, from provincial enforcers to a hereditary elite whose children were trained from birth to ride, shoot, and fight. They were becoming not just protectors of the land, but shapers of the nation's destiny. By the late Heian period in the 11th and 12th centuries, Japan was a nation of shifting loyalties and rising tensions. The imperial court in Kyoto still sat at the top of the official hierarchy, but in reality, its influence was cracking. In the provinces, powerful warrior clans were growing restless. These were no longer just servants to the aristocracy. They were political players in their own right, with their own armies, fortified estates, and ambitions. Two names in particular would come to dominate this era: the Taira and the Minamoto, rival clans whose ambitions were as vast as their bloodlines were old. What began as political maneuvering soon erupted into open war. The Genpei War, 1180 to 1185, wasn't just a battle between armies. It was a clash between two visions for Japan's future. The Taira, with their deep ties to the imperial court, favored maintaining the old order. The Minamoto, with a stronger warrior ethos, sought to create something new, a Japan led not by ceremonial rulers, but by military might. Battles raged across the islands. Picture fleets of war junks clashing on coastal waters, samurai archers loosing arrows in clouds that darkened the sky. On land, warriors in ornate lacquered armor charged across fields, banners snapping in the wind, each bearing the crest of their clan. The war ended with the Minamoto's decisive victory at the naval battle of Danno-ura in 1185, a dramatic showdown in the narrow straits of Shimonoseki. The Taira fleet was shattered, their leader defeated, and the young emperor they supported drowned at sea, ending the dynasty's grip on power. With victory came a new order. Minamoto no Yoritomo established the Kamakura shogunate, Japan's first military government. The emperor still sat on the throne in Kyoto, but it was the shogun in Kamakura who held real power. This marked the beginning of a dual structure in Japanese politics. The emperor, a symbolic, almost divine figure. The shogun, the actual ruler, backed by the might of the samurai. From this point on, the samurai weren't just warriors. They were the ruling class. They controlled land, collected taxes, and enforced laws. Their armor became a walking statement of power. Helmets with horns, crests, and masks meant to terrify enemies. Layered lamellar plates bound with silk cords, a blend of beauty and lethality. This was the golden ticket for ambitious men born into the right families. The path from provincial obscurity to national dominance now ran through the samurai ranks. But power, as history loves to remind us, is never permanent. The same rivalries and ambition that gave birth to the samurai class would one day tear it apart. We often hear about Bushido as a strict code of honor, loyalty, self-discipline, courage. And yes, those values were important, but reality was messier. The samurai code evolved over centuries and wasn't formally written down until long after their peak. Many samurai were loyal until it was politically smarter not to be. Some fought bravely, others schemed behind the scenes. Bushido was as much about projecting an image as it was about actual behavior, a way to legitimize power and inspire fear and respect. The 16th century brought Japan's warring states period, chaos, shifting alliances, and legendary warlords like Oda Nobunaga and Toyotomi Hideyoshi. Samurai were everywhere, leading armies, storming castles, and engaging in brutal duels. But when Tokugawa Ieyasu unified Japan in 1600, everything changed. The Edo period brought peace, which was bad news for a warrior class built for war. Many samurai became bureaucrats or teachers. Their swords were more symbol than weapon. By the 19th century, with the arrival of Western powers, the samurai way of life was on borrowed time. The Meiji Restoration in 1868 officially abolished their privileges, ending over 700 years of samurai rule. Even though the samurai as a class disappeared, their image lived on. From martial arts traditions to modern corporate culture, the ideals of discipline, loyalty, and perseverance still echo through Japan. And globally, the samurai myth, sharpened by film, anime, and literature, remains one of the most enduring symbols of honor and strength. The real samurai were human, ambitious, flawed, and strategic. But in the space between history and legend, they became something more. A reminder that power is never just about force. It's about the story you tell.